Maybe most women over 50 believe they already know what love is. But let's pause and be brutally honest for a second. Do you really understand it? Or have you spent most of your life chasing a version of love that was never truly yours? Think about it. Have you ever shared a bed with someone and still felt profoundly lonely, as if the two of you were living in completely different worlds? Have you ever been loved deeply by someone yet your heart refused to respond? Or perhaps you've looked back at a relationship that once felt like destiny, the kind that made you believe in soulmates, only to watch it dissolve as if it had never existed. If any of these questions hit close to home, this message is for you. Because the truth is, real love, the kind that grounds you, heals you, and transforms you, isn't something most of us truly understand when we're young. It only reveals itself after decades of living, loving, losing, and rebuilding. Let me tell you a story. A couple of years ago, I had coffee with Laura, a college friend I hadn't seen in almost 30 years. We were both in our 50s now. Her once dark hair had turned a soft silver, and faint smile lines framed her eyes. But what struck me most wasn't how she'd aged. It was the calm in her presence. She radiated a kind of peace that only comes from someone who's walked through hell and learned how to breathe again. Laura told me about the woman she used to be. In her 20s, she believed love was everything. She left a dream job to move across the country for a man she thought she'd spend her life with. She sacrificed passions, opportunities, and even her own identity just to hold that relationship together. She believed that love meant giving everything, even if it meant losing herself. But the man she gave everything to walked away. He fell for someone else, and Laura's world collapsed. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was lost. She didn't know who she was without him. For years, she wandered through the pain, convinced that love had betrayed her. But time, that quiet, patient teacher, showed her something deeper. Love hadn't betrayed her. She had misunderstood it. Love isn't about endless sacrifice. It's not about shrinking yourself so someone else can grow. And it's never about proving that you're worthy of being chosen. Real love begins the moment you learn to choose yourself. Today, Laura is with someone new, a man named David, and their relationship couldn't be more different. David doesn't flood her phone with romantic texts. He doesn't make dramatic gestures or promise her the moon. But he shows up. He waits for her so they can have dinner together. He listens without trying to fix everything. He holds her hand when she's anxious and simply stays. There's no chaos, no dizzying highs followed by devastating lows. What there is instead is peace, a steady, comforting kind of love that doesn't demand or consume. It just exists. And one night, as they sat quietly on the porch, watching the sunset, Laura turned to me and said something I'll never forget. When I was younger, I thought love was supposed to make my heart race. Now I know real love is the kind that makes my heart feel calm. That one sentence carries a lifetime of wisdom, because when we're young, we chase love to fill the emptiness inside us. But once we've lived long enough, we realize that love isn't about filling a void. It's about sharing the wholeness we've built within ourselves. In our 20s, we look for someone to make us happy. But after 50, we understand. The right person isn't the one who completes us. It's the one who meets us whole. Maybe that's why love feels so different at this stage of life. It's no longer the reckless, all-consuming passion that once burned bright and then faded. It's quieter, deeper, a safe space where two souls, both scarred and softened by time, can sit side by side and feel at home in the silence. Have you ever experienced a love like that? One that doesn't need to shout, one that gives more than it takes, one that helps you find yourself rather than lose yourself. If you have, I'd love for you to share your story in the comments below. You never know. Your story might be the message someone else needs right now. And if you haven't, don't worry. Because in the next part of this journey, we'll go deeper into something many of us never see coming. The painful but powerful truth that we often don't truly understand love until we've lost it. And it's through that loss that we discover the kind of love our hearts were searching for all along. Here's the truth. No one tells you when you're young. The most profound lessons about love don't come from the relationships that work. They come from the ones that break you. We don't grow because someone stayed. We grow because someone left. We don't understand love when everything is perfect. We understand it when everything falls apart. Let me tell you a story about someone named Rachel. She met Mark in her 30s. He was charming, driven, funny, the kind of man who could walk into a room and instantly light it up. Rachel fell deeply in love, and for a while, everything felt perfect. They moved in together, made plans, dreamed about a future that felt certain. She believed, with every fiber of her being, that he was the one. But life had other plans. Over time, the relationship began to crack, not because of betrayal or abuse, but because they were both growing in different directions. Rachel wanted depth, stability, a partner to build a life with. Mark wanted freedom, excitement, endless adventure. And no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't pull each other back into the same rhythm. One night, after another painful conversation, he packed a bag and left. Just like that, 10 years of love, laughter, and memories were over. Rachel spent months replaying everything in her head, what she did wrong, what she could have said, whether she should have fought harder. But in the silence that followed, something unexpected happened. She started hearing her own voice again, a voice that had been buried under the weight of compromise and fear. She realized she had spent years bending and shrinking to keep someone else happy, and in the process, she had forgotten who she was. This is one of the hardest and most beautiful truths about love. Sometimes it's not meant to stay. Sometimes its only purpose is to reveal the parts of yourself you would have never discovered without it. Ask yourself this: how many times have you looked back at a relationship that broke your heart and realized that without it, you wouldn't be the person you are today? It's painful to admit, but the love that ends often leaves behind the richest soil for growth. It teaches you what you value. It shows you the boundaries you ignored. It reveals the needs you kept quiet about. And most importantly, it forces you to stop defining yourself by someone else's presence and start defining yourself by your own worth. This is why Carl Jung, the psychologist whose work inspired so much of this channel, believed that heartbreak is not a failure. It's a necessary part of individuation, the process of becoming fully, authentically yourself. When someone leaves, they take with them the illusions you once held. And in the space they leave behind, the truth begins to grow. Rachel told me something years later that I've never forgotten. I thought losing Mark was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But now I see it was the best thing. Because I didn't just lose him, I found me. If you're going through heartbreak right now, I want you to remember that. This isn't the end of your story. It's the chapter where you finally start writing it for yourself. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you love, it won't come from a place of emptiness or fear. It will come from fullness, from wholeness, from a place that says, I don't need you to complete me, but I choose you to walk beside me. And that changes everything. Here's something worth reflecting on. How many times in your life did you confuse attachment for love? How many times did you try to hold on because you were scared of who you might be without them? If any of that resonates with you, write it down. Even share it in the comments if you feel brave. Because that small act of reflection is often where healing begins. The truth is, by the time we reach our 50s, many of us are carrying scars from loves that didn't last. But instead of seeing those scars as signs of failure, what if we started seeing them as proof that we loved deeply and survived? What if those heartbreaks weren't dead ends, but doorways leading us closer to the love we were always meant to experience? Because here's the paradox. The love that breaks you is often the one that builds you, and as we'll explore in the next part of this journey, once you've faced that pain, once you've rebuilt yourself from the inside out, you no longer chase love the way you used to. You attract it. Not because you're desperate for it, but because you finally understand your own worth. There's a quiet shift that happens after heartbreak, one that no one warns you about. At first, all you feel is the emptiness, the silence where someone else's laughter used to be. Your mornings feel colder, your evenings feel longer, and in those lonely spaces, you start to believe that love has passed you by. But then, something subtle begins to happen. Little by little, you stop reaching outward and start looking inward. You begin to ask different questions, not why did they leave, but who am I now? Not what was wrong with me, but what do I truly need? This is the moment your transformation begins. Because the truth is, love doesn't come to those who chase it out of fear. It comes to those who grow into the kind of people who no longer need it to feel whole. Let me tell you about Claire. She spent most of her adult life searching for love. She dated all the right people, followed all the right advice, and still ended up feeling empty. After her second divorce in her late 40s, she hit rock bottom. I started to think maybe love just isn't for me, she told me. But instead of rushing into another relationship, Claire did something she had never done before. She paused. She stopped trying to find someone and decided to find herself instead. She started therapy. She took long walks alone. She wrote down her fears, her needs, her childhood wounds, and slowly she realized something profound. For most of her life, she wasn't looking for love. She was looking for validation. She had mistaken being chosen for being worthy. That realization changed everything. Claire began to build a life that felt full, not because someone was standing beside her, but because she was finally standing fully in herself. She learned to enjoy her own company. She reconnected with hobbies she had forgotten. She even started traveling solo, something she had always been too scared to do before. And then, one day, love appeared again. Not in a dramatic, movie-like moment, but in the most ordinary way, through a friend of a friend at a dinner party. His name was James. They didn't fall in love overnight. They took their time. And as Claire puts it, it was the first time I didn't feel like I was auditioning for someone's heart. I was just being, and that was enough. This is the secret no one tells you. Love is not a prize you win by performing. It's something that flows naturally toward those who are already living as their fullest, most authentic selves. It's why Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." When you grow into the most complete version of yourself, you don't just attract love, you elevate it. You meet someone who isn't there to fix you or complete you. They're there to grow with you. Ask yourself this: are you trying to find someone to fill your emptiness, or are you building a life so rich and meaningful that love becomes a beautiful addition, not a desperate need? This question is worth sitting with, because the answer determines not only the kind of love you attract, but whether that love will last. The transformation that happens after heartbreak isn't about becoming better, so someone else will choose you. It's about learning to choose yourself. It's about healing the parts of you that once clung to people out of fear. It's about forgiving yourself for the times you settled for less because you didn't believe you deserved more. And it's about learning, deeply and without doubt, that your value has never depended on someone else's ability to see it. Once that transformation happens, everything changes. You stop chasing love and start inviting it. You stop settling for crumbs and start expecting a feast. You stop confusing intensity for intimacy, and you start seeking depth instead. And most importantly, you stop trying to be enough for someone, because you already are. Here's the most beautiful part. When love does come again, it won't look like it did before. It will feel calmer, more grounded, more aligned with who you truly are. There will be no anxious waiting for texts, no walking on eggshells, no shrinking to make someone else comfortable. There will be space. Space for both of you to grow, space for both of you to be fully seen, space for a love that is rooted in freedom, not fear. And if you're wondering how to know when you're ready for that kind of love, here's the simplest sign. When you stop needing someone to choose you, you're ready to choose with someone. When you stop searching for someone to make you happy, you're ready to share the happiness you've already built. When you stop fearing that you'll be alone forever, you're ready to welcome someone into the life you're perfectly capable of living on your own. And here's something important. Transformation doesn't mean you'll never feel lonely again. Of course, there will still be nights when you wish someone were there beside you. But the difference is this: loneliness will no longer feel like a reflection of your worth. It will simply be a part of the human experience, one that comes and goes like the tide. And that is where true power lies. So I want to ask you something, a question that might feel uncomfortable but necessary. If love never came again, could you still build a life that feels meaningful, joyful, and whole? If the answer is no, then maybe that's where your work begins. But if the answer is even a hesitant yes, then congratulations. You're already walking the path toward a kind of love far deeper and more enduring than anything you've known before. Because here's the truth: we don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. And when we become whole, healthy, and at peace, we call in love that mirrors that wholeness back to us. There's a moment that happens somewhere after the storms have passed, after the heartbreak, after the healing, after the searching and rebuilding. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with fireworks or grand revelations. It comes quietly, like a sunrise. And when it does, you realize something you probably never saw clearly before. Real love isn't about intensity. It's about presence. When we're young, we confuse passion with love. We think the butterflies, the late-night texts, the obsessive thoughts, that's love. We chase the highs, the chemistry, the fire. But as the years pass, we start to see the truth. Those things, beautiful as they are just moments. They flare up, they burn bright, and then they fade. Passion is a spark, but presence is the fire that keeps you warm long after the spark has gone. Presence is love that stays. It's the quiet, knowing that someone will be there tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. It's the comfort of silence that doesn't need to be filled, the trust that doesn't need to be spoken, the safety of a hand you can reach for in the dark. Let me tell you a story. After her divorce, Linda swore she would never love again. "I don't have the energy for it," she told me. "I don't want the drama. I don't want the pain. But a few years later, she met Paul. They were both in their late 50s, both divorced, both carrying their share of scars. And at first, Linda almost walked away, not because there was anything wrong, but because there was nothing intense. There was no whirlwind, no dizzying rush. Paul was steady, predictable, maybe even a little boring, she thought. But then something unexpected happened. One evening, after a long day, Linda came home exhausted and frustrated. Paul was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. He didn't try to fix her problems. He didn't offer motivational speeches. He just handed her a glass of wine, kissed her forehead, and said, "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I'm here." It was such a small moment, yet it changed everything. For the first time in years, Linda felt safe, not excited, not overwhelmed, just safe. And she realized that maybe that's what love is supposed to feel like. Presence is what makes love feel like home. It's not measured in grand gestures or dramatic words. It's measured in the 1,000 little ways two people show up for each other. It's the way they remember how you like your coffee, the way they know when you need space and when you need a hug, the way they see you, really see you, even when you're at your worst. And here's the most beautiful part. Presence is only possible when two people are no longer trying to fix each other. They're no longer projecting their wounds, no longer clinging to fantasies. They're simply showing up as they are, whole, imperfect, human, and saying, "I choose you today, and I'll choose you again tomorrow." Think about it. How many relationships fall apart, not because the love isn't there, but because the presence isn't? How many times have you felt invisible even while standing right next to someone? Love without presence is like a house without a foundation. It might look beautiful for a while, but eventually it collapses under its own weight. Presence also teaches us something profound about time. When we're young, we love with one eye on the future, always asking, "Where is this going?" But when we grow older and wiser, we learn to love in the present. We stop rushing. We stop measuring the value of love by how quickly it moves or how far it might go. Instead, we start asking, "How does it feel right now?" And that shift changes everything. It's in presence that we learn the deepest form of intimacy, the kind that isn't built on words or plans, but on the quiet certainty that someone is walking beside us, not ahead, not behind, but right here. And the older we get, the more precious that becomes. Presence is also what allows love to evolve. It's the space that lets two people grow side by side without fear. In your 20s, growth can feel like a threat. If one person changes, the relationship often breaks. But in your 50s and beyond, presence becomes the container that holds that change. You don't fear it. You welcome it. You give each other permission to keep becoming. And here's something that might surprise you. The couples who make it last, the ones who still hold hands decades later, are not they the ones who were always the most passionate. They're the ones who were the most present. They're the ones who never stopped showing up, even when it was hard. They're the ones who built their love not on fleeting feelings, but on the quiet, daily choice to be there. So I want to ask you a question, one that might stay with you long after this video ends. Are you looking for someone who makes your heart race or someone who makes your soul rest? Because at this stage of life, the difference between the two is everything. When you find a love built on presence, everything about it feels different. There's less anxiety, less overthinking, less of that desperate need to control the outcome. Instead, there's trust, there's ease, there's a deep unspoken understanding that whatever happens, you're in it together. And that's when you realize presence is not the absence of passion. It's passion's evolution. It's passion that has grown roots. It's love that's no longer chasing fireworks, because it has become the fire itself. There's a moment in every journey when you realize that love, real love, is no longer just about two people. It's no longer about chasing, winning, or holding on. It's no longer about the highs and lows, the butterflies, or the heartbreak. It becomes something far deeper, far more expansive. It becomes the way you move through the world. When you've walked the long road, when you've loved and lost, when you've broken and healed, when you've stopped searching and started becoming, something inside you shifts. Love stops being something you fall into. It becomes something you live from. At this stage, love is no longer just a relationship status. It's how you speak. It's how you listen. It's how you show up. Not just for a partner, but for your friends, your children, your community, and most importantly, for yourself. Because here's the truth. Once you understand love as presence, as choice, as growth, you realize it's not limited to romance. Romantic love may be the spark that leads you here, but what you discover is so much bigger. It's a way of being, a way of showing up in the world that touches everything around you. You see it in small, ordinary moments, in the way you pause to truly listen when someone shares their pain, in the way you forgive, not because they deserve it, but because holding on would only harden your heart, in the way you offer kindness to a stranger, not because you expect anything in return, but because love has become the language you speak. When love becomes who you are, it seeps into everything you do, and ironically, that's when the relationships around you deepen more than ever. Because you're no longer coming to love with a half-empty cup, begging someone else to fill it. You're arriving full, and from that fullness, you have more to give. Think about the most beautiful relationships you've ever seen. Maybe a couple married for decades, still holding hands as they walk. Maybe friends who have weathered decades of life's storms and still show up for each other without question. What makes them special isn't perfection. It's devotion. It's daily choice. It's the decision over and over again to bring love into the ordinary. And here's something most people miss. When love becomes a way of living, you stop fearing its absence. You no longer panic at the thought of being alone. You no longer cling to people who aren't meant to stay. You stop measuring your worth by whether someone else chooses you, because you are already choosing yourself every single day. This doesn't mean you stop wanting connection. On the contrary, you become more open to it, but from a place of strength, not desperation. You no longer need love to rescue you. You invite it to walk beside you. This is the point where relationships become truly beautiful, because they're no longer cages, they're gardens, spaces where both people are free to grow, to change, to bloom, and to support each other's growth. And if life leads you to walk separate paths, it hurts. Of course it hurts, but it doesn't destroy you, because love was never something you owned. It was something you shared. There's an old saying that goes, "We don't love people for how they complete us. We love them for how they help us remember who we are." And isn't that the essence of it all? Every person who's ever loved you, even the ones who broke your heart, has played a role in helping you find pieces of yourself you might never have seen otherwise. Maybe the one who left taught you strength. Maybe the one who betrayed you taught you boundaries. Maybe the one who stayed taught you trust. And maybe, just maybe, the one who hasn't come yet will teach you the most powerful lesson of all: how to share your life from a place of wholeness. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If love is no longer about finding the one, if it's no longer about completing some missing half, then what is it really about for you? What does it look like to live love every day, in the way you speak, the way you forgive, the way you show up? Take a moment and reflect, because the answer to that question will shape not only your relationships, it will shape the rest of your life. When love becomes the ground you walk on, it changes the way you see everything. The small frustrations that used to bother you now feel trivial. The moments of joy taste sweeter. Even the difficult seasons feel purposeful because you understand that every experience is an invitation to love deeper, yourself, others, and life itself. And here's the paradox. When you stop obsessing over finding love, love finds you. Not because you're searching for it, but because you've become a living expression of it. You attract what you are. And when you are love, you draw love in from every direction. By the time we reach this point in life, our 50s, 60s, and beyond, love has changed shape many times. It's been passionate and messy, painful and beautiful, selfish and selfless. But now, finally, it becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a destination, but a path. Not a chapter, but the story itself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real secret. Love isn't something you fall into. It's something you choose every day. It's something you become. And when you become it, you'll see it everywhere. In the eyes of someone you adore, in the laughter of a friend, in the way sunlight spills across your kitchen table on an ordinary morning. That is the kind of love worth waiting a lifetime to understand. And the truth is, it was never outside of you. It was always waiting to be discovered inside. There comes a point in life, often quietly and without fanfare, when love is no longer just something you feel, it becomes the way you live. It's no longer about chasing, possessing, or clinging to someone. It's no longer about the thrill, the heartbreak, or the dramatic highs and lows. After everything you've been through, the loves that shaped you, the losses that broke you, the healing that rebuilt you, love transforms into something far deeper. It stops being an event and becomes a state of being. It's no longer about falling in love. It's about living from love. And when that happens, love stops being confined to a single relationship. It starts to show up in everything you do, in the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you forgive, the way you show up not only for a partner, but for your friends, your children, your community, and most importantly, for yourself. Romantic love may have been the spark that led you here, but what you discover beyond that is far more expansive. Love becomes the lens through which you experience the world. It's present in the small things, in the patience you offer someone who's struggling, in the kindness you give a stranger, in the way you choose to forgive not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to let bitterness harden your heart. When love becomes your foundation, it seeps into every corner of your life. And ironically, that's when the relationships around you deepen the most, because you're no longer coming to love half empty, hoping someone else will complete you. You're arriving already full, and from that fullness, you have more to give. Think about the most beautiful connections you've ever seen, couples who still hold hands after decades together, friends who never stop showing up for each other even after life has changed them. What makes these bonds so strong isn't perfection or passion. It's the daily choice to bring love into the ordinary moments. And once love becomes the way you live, something remarkable happens. You stop fearing its absence. You stop panicking about being alone. You no longer measure your worth by whether someone else chooses you, because you are already choosing yourself over and over again. This doesn't mean you stop wanting companionship, quite the opposite. You become more open to it, but from a place of strength, not desperation. You no longer need someone to rescue you. You invite someone to walk beside you. At this stage, relationships stop being cages and start becoming gardens, spaces where both people are free to grow, evolve, and support one another's growth. And if life takes you down different paths, it still hurts, But it doesn't destroy you because love was never something you owned, it was something you shared. There's a saying that we don't love people because they complete us, but because they help us remember who we are. And isn't that what all of this is really about? Every person you've loved, even the ones who left, even the ones who broke your heart, helped you discover pieces of yourself you might never have found otherwise. The one who left may have taught you strength. The one who betrayed you may have taught you boundaries. The one who stayed may have taught you trust. And perhaps the one who hasn't come yet will teach you how to share your life from a place of wholeness. So ask yourself this: if love is no longer about finding the one, if it's no longer about completing a missing half, then what is it about for you now? What would it look like if you made love the foundation of everything you do? In how you speak, how you forgive, how you move through each day. Because the answer to that question won't just shape your relationships, it will shape your entire life. When love becomes the ground you walk on, it changes how you see the world. The small annoyances lose their weight. Joy feels deeper. Even pain feels purposeful, because you understand that every experience is an invitation to love more, yourself, others, and life itself. And here's the paradox. When you stop desperately searching for love, love finds you. Not because you're chasing it, but because you've become a living expression of it. You attract what you are, and when you are love, you draw love in naturally. By the time we reach this stage, in our 50s, 60s, and beyond, love has taken many shapes. It's been passionate and painful, selfish and selfless, fleeting and enduring. But now, finally, it becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a destination to reach, but a path to walk. Not a chapter in your life, but the story itself. And maybe that's the great secret. Love was never something to fall into. It was something to become. And when you become it, you see it everywhere, in the eyes of someone you adore, in the laughter of a friend, in the golden light of a quiet morning. That is the kind of love worth spending a lifetime learning. And the truth is, it was never out there waiting to be found. It was always inside you, waiting to be lived.